part of the question, and I give the call to the member for Dunkley.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. As with my other colleagues in the House, I support this bill, but I rise today to speak predominantly to the second reading amendment, and in particular to this part of the second reading amendment, which notes that the government has made it more expensive for Australian students to undertake tertiary study and has pushed students into taking on more debt. And that is a shame across Australia, and it is a huge shame in my electorate of Dunkley, where there are many young people from families who are hard-working families who are earning minimum wage or slightly above, whose aspiration is to go to university and study commerce and the arts, to study law, to do degrees that help them to have careers that help others. And they can't imagine leaving university with something like a $50,000 debt and how they could possibly go on with their adult lives with that on their shoulders. And I know that this is an issue that's been raised by many people in this chamber, and it's an obvious intellectual issue that you can imagine when you think about young people from families that don't have much money, that I don't have to imagine it, because I've had parents and students come into my office and tell me about their genuine concerns about how the government's approach to universities and fees are going to impact their futures. I've had a mother from Seaford write to me about the fact that her son, who is currently studying second year law, and her daughter, who's in year 12, who wants to study law, are going to leave university with massively disparate debt. And her son is likely to get a job that, even at the entry-level graduate position, earns more money than her daughter, because despite all the laws and despite what everyone may say, it is still the case that at the entry level, men and women are paid differently for the same amount of jobs, the same job. So her concern is her daughter's going to leave university with a much higher debt than her son. Her son's going to most probably start earning more money than her daughter. Her son is never going to, unless he chooses to, have to put a pause on his career to look after a baby. He's certainly never going to have to take time off to give birth. Her daughter will have to. And she says to me, this is the part of gender inequality that this government doesn't get, because I've got two children who I've brought up exactly the same, who have the same values, who have the same aspirations for employment, and are yet are genuinely looking at careers and earnings in retirement which are significantly different because of structural inequalities and structural barriers in the system, which this government is not fixing, but indeed is making worse with the changes to university fees. So that's one of the consequences of the government making it more expensive for Australian students to undertake tertiary studies. The other consequence is that this attempt to skew students to study particular subjects at university. We all want our young people to get jobs of the future, and we know that STEM is vitally important, and we all want people to go to university and study in a way that will help them with their future careers. But my concern is that there's one half of this chamber that also wants Australians to be great thinkers, and to be innovative thinkers, and to be challenging thinkers, and to go to university and become enriched with the history of Greece and Italy and the Indonesian archipelago, for the reason that that matters. That sort of learning matters, and it might not immediately put you into a STEM job or what's known as a job of the future, but it helps us as a country to be smart and to challenge stereotypes and to learn from history so that we make a better future. And it appears that that's what this government wants to stop. It wants to stop critical thinking, or at least critical thinking that doesn't agree with its own ideology, with the way that it's made university fees more expensive. And that's a shame for the future of our country. And that's what's missing from this budget. We're here in Budget Week, and there's been a lot of money spent, and there's been a lot of analysis of the budget, and there will continue to be a lot of analysis of the budget. What's in it, what's not, who's winners, who's losers, what's an announcement without a delivery, what's new money, what's old. All of that is important. But you know what actually is missing from the budget? You know what was missing from the Treasurer's speech and his media appearances and the Prime Minister's speeches? Is a genuine vision for this country. A genuine vision for the sort of country this government wants to steer us towards. A genuine vision for how, when we skill up Australians, when we get our young people into TAFE and university or apprenticeships, how that contributes to the sort of world-leading nation we want to be. No vision about how we can harness the challenge of climate change to have new industries and new jobs to save the planet, but also to engage that enthusiasm and passion and fierce fighting spirit that young people all over Australia have about the future into building a better one. You know, we'll beat and meet our emissions targets, but that's it. That's what's missing. That's what's missing this week from the Morrison government. And their approach to universities, I think, underwrites that, because there's no vision in a government that has abandoned university students and universities in their time of need. We know that in January of this year, more than 17,000 people had lost their jobs at universities across Australia since the beginning of the pandemic. More than 17,000 people had lost their jobs. They weren't jobs that we heard much about in the budget speeches. And University Australia forecast further cuts this year. 13% of the pre-COVID workforce has been lost from universities, and of course that's lecturers and tutors and academics and some administrators. But you know who it also is? It's cleaners, people that work in the canteens, people that look after the gardens, that do the maintenance. It's also the ecosphere, the economic ecosphere that grows up around universities that are a bit off campus. The cafes, the pubs, the boutiques, the accommodation. All of that's affected by the fact that this government walked away from universities and continued to change JobKeeper so that universities couldn't get it, and are still not thinking about how to support universities. Sure, we want universities to do research which can be commercialised. That's great. We also want universities thinking that comes before the research and around the research. We also want universities to support the critical thinking that feeds into having a vision for the future. And we're not going to have that if we don't have universities. And we're not going to have that if we only have private universities, or universities that have to function predominantly in a privatised commercial mode, which is where this government is pushing them, to rely on foreign students, but now that the foreign students can't come, not giving them any support is another irony. But we lose something. We lose something if we lose that sense of education for the worth of education and for being able to think and debate and ponder. We genuinely lose something. And I fear that that's why this week we haven't heard from the government an actual vision, because of that lack of valuing and understanding the importance of thinking. And the people that are affected are real people. So before I conclude my remarks, I just want to give this example. I have this truly amazing young woman volunteering in my office at the moment in Parliament House, Lucy Skelton, who's a first-year student at ANU studying public policy and other things, and told me today that if she could basically live in Parliament House, she would, because it's so exciting for her to be here and to be part of all of this. And she helped to put together some notes for this speech. Sorry, Lucy, I always ad-lib and don't use all the notes that are given to me. But Lucy put together these notes, and one of the things she did was go through the member for Barton's speech to highlight some of the issues. And I think she accidentally, in the papers she gave me part of what she'd marked up. Because the sentence of the member for Barton's speech that says, "Think about the year 12s who had a hell of a final year last year with COVID," Lucy'd written on it, "That's me." You know, that one sentence resonated with her so much, she wrote on it, "That's me." And she's lucky enough, she's at university, she's doing all she can to live her dream. I want everyone to have Lucy's opportunities. I want everyone in my electorate to be able to dream Lucy's dreams and be able to come here to Parliament and sleep here if they could, as Lucy puts it, because she's so excited to be here, and to be able to study things like public policy and politics because they want to be part of this democracy and the bureaucracy that supports it and everything that makes the world a better place. That's what I want for everyone in my electorate. But they can't have that if they can't afford to go to university, and they can't afford to buy the books, and they can't afford to pay the accommodation costs. And they certainly can't have those opportunities if Monash University Peninsula Campus in my electorate can't afford to keep offering what it's offering because it doesn't get the support from the government. So that's why I stand to speak to the second reading amendment today, and I commend it to the House, and I commend the other side of the chamber to really think about the value of universities and what they give to society. Thank you.